So this video is going to talk about how I started and grew my art business. I make polymer clay jewelry and I've been running my shop for about 3 years. I currently make about $3,000 to $7,000 a month from selling my art completely online, and I've grown over 175,000 followers collectively across my social media platforms without paying for a single ad. I'm definitely not an expert and I'm figuring everything out as I go, but I wanted to share what I've learned so far and hopefully you'll find it useful. So starting off with the financials, here are some screenshots of my payments. My income really fluctuates because there are some months that I invest in creating content and growing my YouTube, and other months I solely focus on my jewelry business. My goal is to eventually get a decent part of my income from YouTube or other social medias, but at the moment this is the majority of what I make, and as you can see there's a lot of fees that come out, so I'll definitely touch on that later. When I started selling, I would make things that were really popular and trendy and price my work extremely low, hoping to entice customers. And for a year, I had a few sales here and there, but I don't think it really made an impact. I actually started seeing more success when I niched down, and I made very specific jewelry that I knew not a lot of people would like. I would actually feel slightly embarrassed when my friends would see because I knew it wasn't their style and I assumed they would think it was kind of tacky. And to be honest, they probably did, but at the same time, so many people loved them as much as I did, and they were actually willing to pay higher prices because there really wasn't a lot of shops that offered similar styles. A lot of people value something because they just like it. I think about the time I bought my sister a pair of earrings from one of her favorite brands, Chanel. What initially made this brand special was that Coco Chanel really didn't follow the standard fashion of her time and took a lot of inspiration from menswear and her own personal style. Her unconventional designs popularized comfortable, simple, yet beautiful clothes for women. And because their brand has been set apart with their innovation, they can now sell a brass and fake pearl earring for $600 just with their name alone. Art is also a luxury, and its value is determined so much by our perception, not material cost. We might not have huge marketing budgets, but as artists, we can build the same loyalty through our authenticity. No matter how good you are, there's always going to be companies that are cheaper and more established, or artists that are more skilled and popular, but there's really only one of you. So, although my shop is on Etsy, none of my sales actually come from the site itself. I found that the marketplace is oversaturated and I still get really confused about SEO. So instead, my audience really finds me through platforms like Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, where I share who I am, my process, and the inspirations behind my work. Without in-person markets or fairs, I relied completely on social media to build my business. So here are a few things that I would recommend. Secure your username for your business on all platforms. I would just make an account even if you don't plan to post anything, because it's better to have it just in case instead of someone else taking it. On that note, I would cross-promote all your posts across the apps. I film and edit on a separate app and then export them so that I don't have a watermark. I didn't really pay attention to my YouTube when I first started. I would just repost whatever I did on Instagram, and it actually grew me like a much larger following. I've had the same video perform poorly on one app and go viral on another, so this will maximize your chances. For my low-effort content, I use trending sounds with some B-roll or showing off the finished products. They usually do okay, but once in a while they do go viral, especially if I write like a long inspirational quote on top. I also make behind-the-scenes videos, and when I'm explaining my thoughts or process, it seems to really engage people, and these generally perform well, but they do take a lot more time and effort. And something I've noticed is that a lot of my viral videos are when I make mistakes or talk about a bad experience. I think it's because it is relatable, but it also provokes a reaction from people, which is important when you're fighting for attention on these apps, but I don't really like to post these too often because they kind of bum me out. When it comes to editing, I like to make a cut every 2 seconds to show a different point of view. Good to have that visual variety to keep people stimulated. I personally use InShot, but you do have to pay for the premium if you don't want the watermark. If you want a free option, I would recommend CapCut. So many creators use that app and I found it really intuitive. I'm naturally a really shy person and I still struggle to show my personality online, so I've been taking this storytelling class on today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes led by industry experts across film, illustration, design, freelance, productivity, and more. It can help you take your career, hobbies, and passions to the next level. And if you're interested in learning more about content creation, I would really recommend Maggie Starr's class. She really goes in depth with how to create posts on each platform like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and even Pinterest. So the first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today. For a website, I know I've mentioned Etsy hasn't brought much traffic to my shop, but I still recommend it if you're starting out. They do make the process a lot easier because they have everything set up for you, like shipping and sales taxes, and my biggest reason, which is building social proof with reviews. I feel like when I go to a random website, I have no way to verify if the reviews are actually real, but Etsy is an established marketplace that people trust. And kind of a random tip if you are going to use Etsy, after creating your first listing, I would just duplicate it instead of making a new one for future items, because Etsy doesn't allow you to save the draft until you fill out the entire form, and I have lost so much time creating new listings only to accidentally X out or refresh before I'm able to save, and it's so frustrating. By duplicating another listing, you can just immediately save and change all the details on your own time. After all the fees, they do take out 10% of each sale, so it's up to you if it's worth it. You also want to note that they might charge you for marketing. If you make over $10,000 a year, you can't opt out. To be honest, this really rubs me the wrong way because I know my customers are coming from my socials instead of Etsy. It just really feels kind of scammy to me. Now that I have a solid audience, I'm planning to move to Fourth Wall, which only takes 3%. When you're creating your listings, photography is super important. When I see pictures in bad fluorescent lighting, they might not be very clear or have like some distracting things in the background. It immediately makes me feel like it's unprofessional and it looks kind of ugly even if it isn't in real life. Even if you don't have a lot of knowledge in photography and you don't have expensive cameras, most phones take really good quality pictures and you really just need to get the lighting right. So natural sunlight is your best friend, and I like to stand right in front of a window and I position my product facing the window. If I want a clean look, I'll hold it a few feet in front of a blank wall so the background gets a bit blurry. For lifestyle photos, I use a few things around the house that fit my aesthetic and use them as props, like old books, handmade brushes, or plants, and I place some items closer to the camera and some items further away to create some depth. And it's also really helpful for the customer to get a size reference. Since I sell jewelry, I usually just model it myself. You can also place a ruler or a common item next to your product. Something that often gets overlooked is packaging. Part of why I like jewelry for my business is because it's convenient to transport. I can use standard first-class shipping, which is relatively affordable, and I buy all the same boxes for all my packages. It's also good to keep in mind that packaging becomes the first physical interaction someone has with your work. It's an opportunity to make the experience memorable. And it really doesn't have to be expensive. Since my shop is relatively small, I keep my costs low by buying blank boxes and paper in bulk, and I customize them myself with just a few tools. I invest in a custom stamp and a wax seal with my logo, which were about $30 each, but they were a one-time cost and it really elevates the whole presentation. And I also like to write my thank you note directly on the box as a decoration. This is really time consuming and I wouldn't recommend it if you have a lot of sales. But because I sell very limited big ticket items, I have the time to handwrite each note. Then I just wrap it up in twine and it looks so cute. Lastly, it's important to know who you're creating for. A great way to connect your art with potential buyers is by being authentic to yourself. If you create things that you love and are passionate about, you will attract similar people who are interested in those things. It's still good to keep track of your more popular works and analyze feedback to expand ideas or get direction. And if you use external inspiration as just a jumping off point, but not something you chase, you'll be able to make something unique and special. That's all I have for today. I hope I didn't sound super lectury or like a know-it-all. I just wanted it to be helpful and hopefully you guys got something out of this. Thank you so much for watching, and if you're a small business owner or an artist and you have any other advice, please leave them in the comments.